from communities up and down the river.
I remember the moment this local guy came up to me and said,
Good God! I got to ask you, what we need? Soul food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, I like it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. Hit me.
Home of the sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you. The best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get the Henrys at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.
Soul food. Henry Soul Food. What we need? Soul food. Henry Soul Food.
Welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show, brought to you by Golden Crust Bakery, the fastest growing Caribbean-owned franchise in the United States. Golden Crust is committed to the delivery of quality food and excellent customer service. Visit them today at goldencrustbakery.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Thank you so much for joining us. We're still going wall to wall with the coverage of the terrorist attack in Boston, Massachusetts yesterday during the running of the marathon. And joining us live from Politico is Kevin Cirilli, who's one of their top reporters. Kevin, thank you for joining us at such short notice. Welcome to the broadcast. And what can you update us on with the latest in terms of how close this investigation is, having any kind of leads, and what do we know thus far?
Thank you for having me. Earlier today, President Barack Obama did label the act in Boston as a terrorist attack. Also, there are now reports coming out of Boston that investigators have found a circuit switchboard of sorts that was used to launch the bombs, or to explode the bombs, rather. Also, new reports saying that the Saudi man who was originally a person of interest has now been deemed as investigators not a suspect and someone who was simply at the wrong place at the wrong time.
How many fatalities thus far?
There are 3 fatalities and more than 140 people who have been injured.
And many people who had to have parts of their bodies amputated?
Yes, the doctors who are working on the case, they say that there are nails and small bits of pieces of metal that were part of the bomb. They say that this is something that you would see and commonly find in bombs that are used in the Middle East by terrorists. Again, no one has confirmed nor denied who is behind this attack. They haven't ruled that out of a possibility, but again, there is no concrete evidence to suggest at this time that it would be someone, an organization like Al-Qaeda or a domestic terrorist. Likewise, though, that a lot of the injuries that we're seeing are from these little small pieces of metal that were packed into the 2 bombs that exploded yesterday, causing even more injuries, and they are saying that these pieces of metal were designed in the bomb to cause more damage.
You know, many of us cannot understand how someone could plan something so elaborate at such a heavy traffic location between the hotel and the finish line and no one detect anything suspicious.
You know, it really is quite horrific and remarkable just to see what you said. I mean, it's an understatement almost, because you're right, particularly when there are so many photographs, so many videos. We've all seen it replayed over and over in the past 24 hours now. And so, earlier at a press conference in Boston, investigators really were pleading for anyone with any photos to just or videos to just send them in. So I think that there is a lot of information now, and obviously the authorities and investigators are going to release that when they feel that they have enough. But, this is a story that the details will be emerging for weeks, if not months, following this incident.
I live in Washington, D.C., and I must tell you, I can't drive through a race, go to a race, or go to any event on Capitol Hill unless there are bums sniffing dogs. They're all over the place.
Yeah, you're right, and I think that it's going to be. I think that there's a time and a place for all of that, and to discuss how exactly the logistics. But right now it's all speculation, and until authorities and investigators release the name of someone or and more information, until that is made public, really anything that I could offer you on that point would just be speculation.
Well, share with us with what is not factual so far that has been reported. Like they're saying they found 3 other bombs that never detonated. Did the bombs actually go off in the hotel, or did they go off outside?
I think from there are reports that there were other bombs, but that number was as high as 7, and investigators actually said that there were not 7 other bombs. Really, the only 2 were the ones that went off yesterday within just, I think it's like a block radius. Whether it looked like they were detonated outside, and again, just from where the explosions were in the buildings themselves, there weren't reports that the buildings themselves had been damaged. There was an initial report out of JFK Library in Boston that they said that a fire had to happen. An initial report seemingly linked it to the Boston attack, but that has since been deemed just an unfortunate coincidence. No injuries in that fire as well. I do want to say, though, that I think that really the speed at which we live in an age in which everything is tweeted and everything reported just so instantaneously that sometimes, unfortunately, there will be reports that are misleading or perhaps not accurate. There was an investigation into a suburban Boston apartment into the early hours of this morning in Revere, Massachusetts. Obviously, that was connected to the Saudi early 20-something who was a person of interest, and obviously that person has been deemed not connected.
Were there any people who were injured, any fatalities inside the hotel, the Fairmont?
Not that I am aware of. I could be wrong on that, but just there were so many people. As of right now, I'm not sure that. I'll have to be honest with you.
So obviously, the investigation is still ongoing. Families are grieving. America is back to our days of fear. And obviously, just about any other race that goes on anywhere in the United States, especially in a major city, security is going to almost triple. It's going to just make our lives miserable. What happens when something like this takes place and innocent lives are lost and people are injured for no reason at all?
Right, and just the Boston Marathon is perhaps the most famous running sporting event in the world. It really is just the World Cup or the Super Bowl, if you will, of running, and so there is a very elite aspect to it in that top professional runners running it, but there's also this civilian aspect to it in which avid runners they train really for years just to make a qualifying time for this. It's not out of the realm of possibility that just a regular runner could qualify. Obviously they're not going to compete at the professional level, but they could still make it. And what's really unfortunate is that whomever is behind the bombings, they timed it as such that the explosions went off right after the 4-hour mark, and the average time for completing the Boston Marathon is about 4 hours and 15 or 4 hours and 20 minutes. And so really this was detonated at a time in which it would get a lot of exposure, and that average people, not the elite professional athletes, but just the average Joe running the race, would feel the effects, unfortunately.
But, man, this was well thought out. They had to go back and forth to the location, time it, making sure that it would detonate. There were actually exercises, prep exercises leading up to the eventual big day for them. This just
There
doesn't
was,
happen.
and there are. Hello?
Go ahead.
Oh, there was, and I mean there are reports that the bombs came from a duffel bag. So again, there's a switchboard that reportedly has been found by the authorities. So I think bits and pieces are starting to come together. You got to remember, though, we are just about at. We're just over a day, 24 hours from when this has happened, and already, we are. The authorities the investigation is very much ongoing. It's a 12-block radius in Boston that is shut down, and so I think that I would expect by tomorrow we'll have a much more clear picture as to what happened.
Well, we appreciate you so much joining us. How do we get more information on Politico and read some of the things that you write and learn more about Politico?
Well, thank you. Yeah, you can visit us at Politico.com. We cover all things and everything politics. Obviously, this is a lot of politicians are weighing in on this, and President Obama has addressed the nation now twice just on this in the past day, and we'll be keeping all of our readers up to speed. Politico.com.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Let us keep the families in our prayers, and hopefully we'll have you back in the future with more updates. Take care.
Yes, thank you for having me. Have a good day, and all of our thoughts and prayers are with Boston right now.
Yes, absolutely. Just such a, I have such a range of emotions. I know Milo is in the queue, and we're going to get to Milo. I just have such a range of emotions on this issue that we certainly shouldn't give in to fear. That's what they want us to do. They want us to be paranoid. They want us to start pointing fingers at others. They want us to bring out the ugliness that we can bring out when we feel what terrorists look like and this name calling and throwing rocks at mosques. But we should not give in any of this. I do agree with Kevin on this point. We should just wait and be patient until all the details unfold. But we must send a message that once we realize who the culprits are, I don't care if they're domestic terrorists. I don't care where they come from. It doesn't matter to me. The punishment should be the same, and it should be swift and sends the message. When we come back, Milo Pickney will be joining us. That's coming up later on in the show. We have a guest, Powering the Dream, who will be joining us live on the air. I'm Armstrong Williams. Don't go.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams. What does it mean to be conservative? Freedom of speech, freedom of free enterprise, freedom of assembly, less government, less taxes. As a matter of fact, a flat tax. Everyone should pay proportional tax. It doesn't matter whether you make $100 million or $10,000. Everyone should pay their 10%. Everyone should have something at stake in this American economy. I'm Armstrong Williams expressing what we mean by conservative traditional value.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Milo, thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining us. I feel like I haven't talked to you in ages. How are you doing?
Good, my man. Good. How are you today?
I don't really know. I want to be upset about Boston. I don't want to react. It's just painful, because somebody died that somebody knows, and this time last week, these people had no idea as they were preparing for this race that by this time this week, they would be dead, and that's just the way life is, for no reason at all. And you just ask yourself, why do people feel that they really can make a point and they can justify it in the name of God to just kill innocent people? And I mean, just the plan and plot to do it at the Boston Marathon. It's just, no place is sacred in this country anymore, Milo.
Well, from the Armstrong, I think it's an indication of the times we're in. I don't want to minimize the importance of it, considering that there was, horrendous loss of life and ridiculous abuse of humanity through the injuries incurred. But, the reality of it, it's the times we're living in, and I think we actually benefit by diminishing the amounts of dialogue that we apply to it, than talking it up the way every media channel is, because quite frankly, this is exactly what they want. The people that do this are doing it for attention, and they want to hear the pain and suffering that are felt. It's a shame. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Milo, what is going on with the stock market? The stock market, the almighty dollar, the Nikkei in Japan. What is going on, man?
Armstrong, I honestly haven't a clue. The erratic behavior and fluctuations are beyond anybody's measure, and quite frankly, every soundbite on every channel is contradictory of the one that from the channel that preceded it. So I honestly don't know what is going on. I think that in the aftermath of a horrendous few quarters and a challenging economy, people are manufacturing gains and growth, betting wildly. I don't know what to make of it. There's no pattern that I can identify or attribute to the outcomes that we're seeing.
But the slide will continue, won't it?
I think so. I mean, I think it's going to until consumer confidence it has a basis for which to exist. I think the slide has to continue. I mean, people are trying to figure out what's what.
And one thing we can argue is that the market is going to always correct itself.
Well, that we can count on. That we definitely can count on.
And why is that so important? And what are the pros and cons for those that get caught?
Well, I think it's important because you need a baseline in anything. When you build a house, you start with the foundation. And the historical market indices have been the foundation under which the market has gone through its ebb and flow, and has really been the catalyst to investor activity and trust. So I think that the fact that we know that it always ultimately does correct. The question mark is, it's really tossing dice and spinning the roulette wheel to figure out when. But the one thing you can always count on is that eventually it will settle and correct, because it has to. I mean, it's really mechanics more than anything.
What does this do for the housing market and refinancing and interest rates?
You know, the housing market's an interesting anomaly right now. You know, we're seeing we're seeing some growth in the housing market, first time in years. Solid single-digit growth in sales. We're also seeing new starts increase. The concerning issue is that we're seeing this activity in the lower end of the market. The area of the market that most directly impacts our national economy is the middle-class housing market, and that's the market that is still stalled in a quagmire. You know, those $300,000 to $500,000 homes, $600,000 homes that are in the solid middle class arena, and I realize to a lot that many people don't feel that's middle class, but in America it actually is. That's the largest concentration of homes, and those are the homes that are not selling right now. Good time to buy a $150,000 house, though.
How will this affect interest rates? Will they go lower?
I don't think there's anywhere to go lower. I mean, you know, interest rates are at an all-time low, and we've already seen that, you know, you can't bring interest levels to zero, because that actually hurts the economy. Our economy is based upon the borrowing and lending and utilization of other people's money. You know, the historical and frequently referred to OPM. Absent that, there's no way to use other people's money unless there's a return in doing so. You know, why am I going to put my money in play if I'm not getting a return? And one of the problems is for the independent investors, you know, 1.5%, 2% returns don't justify the risk. So interest rates, I anticipate, will stay where they are.
Are banks taking any risk? Are they still just getting fat?
You know something, Armstrong? It's interesting. Historically, banks have never taken a risk. You know, banks are the lowest risk players, probably second only to insurance companies when it comes to monetary risk. You know, the only people who can get loans in America are the people who really don't need them.
Why that philosophy, people that don't need them, and what is there for those that need them to do?
Well, you know, there are some creative structures available to you know, people with subpar credit scores, and people with you know, unreported or you know, non-qualifying income levels. But for the most part, you know, to go out and borrow meaningful money in America, for instance, the money necessary to start a small business. You know, let's use SBA as a perfect example. To get an SBA loan to acquire a small business today, you have to have assets to secure the loan against. So the days of a you know, a college graduate going out and getting an SBA loan to buy a franchise, unless that college graduate has, you know, money in the bank or assets to attach, they can forget it. They're not getting a loan.
But they wouldn't have assets.
Yeah, they've got out of school. How can they?
So is that fair to young people?
Of course not. Of course not. It's well. Let me rephrase that. I shouldn't respond so quickly. I don't know that fair is the discussion point. You know, where was it written that life was to be fair? It's not fair. Is it effective? Is it functional? Does it support the American dream? Absolutely not. And I think those are really where the issues lie, is that today the fundamentals that enabled America to become the great land that it is and will one day return to be are absent. The ability for a young man or woman with a good idea and a commitment to work hard to initiate the development of a business is virtually unattainable unless they have access to private capital.
You know, so if you had to teach a course and for young people how to be that talented 10 to succeed against all odds, where would you direct them and how would you teach them?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I'm about to. I'll be teaching a course in entrepreneurialism very shortly as part of a development program, entrepreneur development program associated with the Bright Ring Foundation here in Atlanta. So I would have them reach out to Bright Ring Foundation in Atlanta at www.brightring.org.
Talk about it some more, Milo. Don't talk to us about it in sound bites. It sounds interesting.
Well, Bright Ring is a foundation. It was created to assist not-for-profits and organizations seeking alternative access to fundraising. And one of the things that they are doing, Bright Ring is in the midst of developing a program. Its first class is an international program that will, the course is targeted at teaching artists how to market and their work, and to expose young people who are in the creative world how to develop entrepreneurial models to build businesses around their creative expression. And it's going to be, the initial course will actually be taught in the island of Barbados, which is kind of an exciting place to go for a few weeks. But it will also be available online, and people will be able to access it through Bright Ring Foundation.
You know, there's always opportunity in the marketplace, isn't it, Milo?
You know something, Armstrong? That's probably one of the most poignant things I've heard anybody say in recent years, and that is the ultimate truth. No matter how bad things are in this great country of America, and I'm a proud American, there's no place on the planet better than here when it comes to the opportunity to change your life if you are willing to make the commitment and do the work. The opportunity is always here in America, even in this deplorable economy.
And people have done it when we had no economy.
People have always done it in America. I mean, if you get out there and you scrape and you pull and you communicate with others, you can get things done, and it's not always about writing a check.
What is it about if it's not always about writing a check?
Well, I think and one of the things that I'm glad about in having gone through this last 3 years in our economy is it has forced entrepreneurs to be creative and identify new ways to establish relationships. Because the one thing that is universally clear is that all entrepreneurialism, successful entrepreneurialism, is based upon relationships. And
hold that point about relationships. We're going to come back to Milo Pickney. And also, Alex Madrigal will be joining us with his new book, Powering the Dream. Don't go away.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the Armstrong Williams Show, and thank you so much for joining us. Let me see. Please finish. You were talking about relationships and other things, Milo, as we had to go out the break. I want you to finish your poignant point.
Oh, well, what I was saying is that, you know, the entrepreneur in America's success or failure is almost exclusively dependent upon relationships. And they play such a significant role in our ability to accomplish anything, because one of the things that the entrepreneur does that big business doesn't do is we find ways to get $10 of value out of $2 of equity. And you only can do that where you have another capital to exchange, and that capital is the interpersonal capital of established relationships. So, you know, the opportunity to excel exists here no matter what your economic situation is, if you invested appropriately in developing qualified relationships.
Do you think developing relationships is an art that comes natural, or does it have to be taught?
I think it needs to be taught more so today than ever before. I know a little bit about your upbringing, and mine they're more, although they're different in many respects, they're very similar. You know, we came from parents who had very strong personal values and taught us that you had to give, you know, that there was a responsibility to share when you enjoyed success, and a responsibility to share knowledge, more importantly than anything. That upbringing has been a catalyst to the life experiences that we've enjoyed. When you look at what's going on today, we've got a very selfish culture today here in America. I had a very exciting conversation. I'm going to digress for a second because I think it's apropos to this discussion. I spent Sunday with my son putting together some furniture for his girlfriend, which I thought was interesting enough that my son volunteered to assemble his girlfriend's furniture for her new apartment, but I had to come over to assemble it. But the thing that was really exciting to me was that I got to spend a few hours alone with him, because she wasn't there, and talking about a whole myriad of things. And one of the things that we talked about was one of the fundamental changes in America, why the nuclear family in America hasn't enjoyed the success that my parents' generation and my parents' parents' generation enjoyed. And, you know, we talked about how kids, you know, my son is 25, he's moved out, he's got his own apartment, his own car, and he's paying rent to a stranger. Meanwhile, we have a 2,000 square foot apartment, extra apartment in our home, that 2-bedroom that he could easily occupy. And I said to him, instead of, you know, spending that money with a stranger, why aren't you living at the family property, paying your share of the rent, because then there's a reason to leave the house to you. And, you know, he looked at me and he said, you know, you're absolutely right. It makes no sense. And because our culture has shifted to that as the norm, families no longer are accumulating wealth, because homes are, instead of paying off a house in 10 or 15 years, homes are going on to 30-year mortgages and sometimes beyond with refinancing, and families aren't able to get a heads up. So I think it's simple things like that, and you know, the relationship at home, followed by the relationship in the street, followed by the relationship in business and community is what enables us to accomplish anything.
Yes, yes. It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. Let me see if our guest is on. Alexis Madrigal, are you on the line? No. Oh, we get it. Does any entrepreneur have to be different today than it has ever been in our history, given the complexities and the changing landscape, the information age, the changing economy? Is there anything that we need to do different, Milo?
Absolutely. We have to be digitally connected. And we have to embrace that which we don't know. It's actually more important for us to know what we don't know than to know what we do. And I think alongside of that is we have to find ways to get scalable returns. We no longer can put $1 in play and hope that it's going to produce a 40 or 50% margin. We have to get 140% off our dollar to because every dollar takes that much more to earn. And then with the actions of the current administration, every dollar we earn, it almost takes $1 to keep it.
People don't know how to save and put aside because they feel they have nothing to save, Milo. Is that always the case?
Well, I've always said this, and it's ironic. I had this conversation with my wife recently. I've always been of the philosophy that you cannot save your way to accomplishment or recovery. You only can achieve recovery or growth through expansion. Do we need to save? Saving is a responsible part of the process, but you'll never be able to save your way out of a situation. You've got to produce your way out of situations. I think what we need to do is to teach entrepreneurs, what the responsible reserve ratios are in any business. One of the businesses that historically has been very effective at that has been the insurance industry and the banking industry. And much of it is attributable to regulatory controls, but they have to set up reserve ratios. And these are ratios of saved dollars relative to the dollars in the case of an insurance company, of earned premium, in the case of a bank, to deposits and loans in play. And if we operated our homes and our small businesses that way, we would have far greater success in that, when you buy inventory, you don't spend all your available dollars on inventory. You only purchase a percentage relative to what you sold in the prior week. And that way you're always growing capital reserves that enable you to expand and recover from the occasional downturns which are inevitable.
I see that our guest has finally joined us. Alexis Madrigal, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So the Power in the Dream. Tell us about Power in the Dream, the eye-opening book about the promises, the history of promise and green technology. We're also joined by our guest commentator Milo Pickney. You talked about profit and salvation, prescribing for the gold globe itself, and the parable of petroleum. Talk about these things. Talk about how this book came into existence and why it's so important.
Sure. Well, I think, when I started looking at my book, it was right in sort of run-up to President Obama's election. And we saw that President Obama, helped out by, Van Jones and several other people, was really looking at making green technology into one of the key planks of his first term. And when I was doing reporting on how green technology had come about, I was realizing that there was almost nothing out there. There was a lot of money put into green technology during the 1970s, but even before then, there were various people who had tried to build wind machines and solar farms and all kinds of stuff. But it's sort of been erased from the culture. People say often that the winners write the history, and in this case, at least through the 20th century, fossil fuel had been the winner. And the people who were involved with sort of thinking about energy history had seen the history of green technology as being one primarily of failure. And so I think I wanted to take some of that history and kind of look at it from the perspective of the 21st century, going into an Obama administration that would support wind and solar, and a lot of a Department of Energy that would be behind that as well.
Milo?
Interesting concept, hypothesis. One of the things that we've seen in green energy technologies, and thankfully green technologies in themselves, is that we've put tremendous dollars in them and they continue to fail. And in fact, one of the government's recent $500 million blunders is about to file bankruptcy, and I believe Fisker Automotive is about to file bankruptcy.
I think, it's sort of cherry-picking, though, to take a couple of companies that fail. I mean, this is new technology development. Companies fail all the time. And that's not just government-backed companies. I mean, that's across the board.
No, I would agree. And I'm not making an indictment of all green initiatives, but one of the things that is clearly evident, and, Fisker is one example. There's Solidare. There's, most of the large solar initiatives have not been successful, and not because...
I guess I would just disagree with that straight up, though. I mean, I think that you can pick a couple that haven't worked, but if you look at the DOE's loan guarantee portfolio, lots of things are working. If you look at the cost of solar coming down, lots of things are working. There's always an ability in something where you're going to support a broad base of different companies. There's always this ability to find some places where it fails. But this is part of the risk calculations that go into doing something like this.
I would agree with the premise that in any mix you're going to have a measurable statistic of failure. That's a given, and on that we are in concert. Where I differ with you is that while the technology has grown, I mean, we have brought the cost of solar technology down over the last 20 years, and we're going to go to break.
Yep, that's right. We'll be back. And caller, we see you. We know you have a question for Milo. We're going to get to you. I'm Armstrong Williams, Alexis Madrigal, powering the dream. We'll be back.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the show. And before we get back to our guest, Alexis Madrigal, let's go to Hosea, who's been holding patiently because he has a question for Milo. Hello, Hosea, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Mr. Armstrong. Yeah, I had a couple of questions for your first guest. I think his name is Milo.
Yes, Milo.
But anyway, yeah. Okay, you talked about the economy earlier, and I heard some things about the economy recently that you may can address. Now, first of all, I hear or read somewhere that in America's economy, it appears that too many people or too many businesses or whatever are so concerned about the bottom line, and I know we got to make money. I understand that, but also you in order to get that, you got to you have to do something on your end. You like provide good service or provide good whatever, good manufacturing or whatever. But we're so greedy for the money that we're not doing the other part, and I wonder if that's part of why our economy is suffering a little bit. And also, I hear that in the next decade or so, if we don't change our ways, China and India may become the #1 economies in the world. Not the United States of America, but China and India. We may end up in 3rd or 4th if we don't change our ways. Have you heard what I've heard?
Well, I hear what you're saying, and to a certain extent, I think it's overly reactionary, but substantively accurate. I mean, the reality of it is that in many respects, the American commitment to quality of service and product integrity has waned. Although I will say that we're seeing significant inroads in correcting of that, most reportedly in the automotive industry, where you look at products being produced by Ford and Chevrolet today, and these were, for years, subpar to our European and Japanese counterparts. And quite frankly, Ford has their new Fusion out, which is comparable to any BMW, 2 classes above it. Chevrolet is producing cars that are performing with equally superiority to their Japanese and European counterparts. So I think the return to American excellence is evident in these trends in industries like the automotive industry. In our service industries, clearly we have seen a deterioration in our commitment to excellence, but I believe that as Armstrong had indicated earlier, the market always seems to correct itself, and I think that we're headed for a correction in that area as well, as people are seeing their lackluster performance reflected in their compensation.
Thank you so much, Jose, for your patience, and thank you for calling in. So talk about to us, Alexis, what happens when an energy system breaks?
Yeah, well, we have one really good example of that. In the 1970s, we had the OPEC oil embargo in the early 70s, followed by another oil shock in the late 1970s. And what you really had was an economy that had sort of been built on the assumption of cheap oil, suddenly was faced with not just expensive oil, but actual shortages in some places. In a lot of ways, we're not really in that same situation now. We, for example, have moved all of our electrical generation off of oil, which at the time was not the case. In fact, now we're using a lot of the natural gas that's produced here in the United States, and there are a lot of benefits to that in the sense that it sort of stabilized things, particularly on the electrical generation side when it comes to oil. And I think right now we're still trying to figure out, I think, among all the think tanks and companies and government people, how it is that you kind of deal with climate change as well as take advantage of the things that are really good about natural gas in this country. I mean, one being that it actually has a cleaner fuel in many ways, not just carbon dioxide. But of course, it still does produce carbon dioxide. It's not, greenhouse gas. It's not wind or solar. So I think a lot of people are trying to figure out. You hear this talk a lot about, can natural gas be a bridge fuel to a zero carbon future? And I think a lot of the game in energy right now, at least as I see it, is to actually make sure that it's a bridge fuel and that we're not building infrastructure we're going to regret down the line.
Milo?
I hear everything you said. I'm curious whether or not the omission of hydrogen technology is deliberate or just an oversight. What's your thoughts with respect to hydrogen?
Well, I think hydrogen's interesting. I mean, I think, as part of a portfolio of research, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think the thing is hydrogen is useful as sort of a storage and transmission kind of a technology. I think the big problem it seems like people have run into in the past is just you have to build a lot of infrastructure for it, and I think that has been a holdup. There's been a lot of talk about, here in California a decade ago, they were talking about the hydrogen highway, and I think one of the problems is you got to build the highway, right? And it's not, and I think that's a big question of where should we be putting, not just government investment, but where should we be putting sort of easing the regulatory burden around various things, right? Because you can imagine a lot of the difficulties around building big hydrogen pipelines, and so I think
the hydrogen can be produced locally. The Iceland has done it successfully. Switzerland has done it successfully, and for the cost of 1 year of the Iraqi war, we could have put hydrogen production facilities in every gas station in America.
I mean, for the cost of 1 year of the Iraq War, we could have done lots of things. I mean,
true that.
I think I just, when it comes to hydrogen, I think that I guess it'd be kind of my general thought is that people seem to like particular technologies, and some people become interested in them as the answer to this question of what to do around energy. And I guess it always seems like, one person's answer is somebody else's bad suggestion. And I guess as a result, I sort of have come to see all these things as sort of part of a whole energy system. Because I think if we look at, one thing that's kind of clear from the history is we haven't succeeded in really reducing the amount of fuels and of types of energy that we use. We've just been adding more on top of kind of the coal-based, and then oil and natural gas and solar and wind and all the other sort of unconventional stuff. And so I think for me, that's kind of, I see a lot of these things as being partial solutions. But that doesn't mean they're not valuable. It just means they're partial.
So let me raise this, because obviously Milo likes this subject. But so how do we power the dream?
Well, I guess for me, a lot of what that comes down to is that we can have a kind of strong and good kind of American industrialism that runs on clean power. I mean, that's the basic thing that I'd like to see in this country, and that we have incredible resources, both fossil and otherwise, here in this country, and that for me, that's what the book is about. Here are the areas where we failed. Here are the things. Here are the things where we've succeeded. And in a lot of ways, like I was saying earlier, every kind of technological development, including all the energy developments that we've had, oil, nuclear, et cetera, have had long-term support as well as sort of long-term failures. And I think what it says to me, and what I've sort of distilled from energy history, is that you need long-term, consistent support and policies in place, and then you need to just let the American people do the thing that they do around innovation, and that we're really good at. So for me, that's kind of the answer, is you use the American people's incredible innovation power and within the context of like a smart, decent, fair government policy, and then you let it go.
It's interesting. Is there any prospect of windmills and other alternative sources and solar for homes like what they were doing in the 1950s?
Yeah, it's interesting. Solar homes, I think, have a better chance now than they've ever had, in large part because in the 1950s, you had the concept of the solar home. I mean, you had it showing up in New York Times, and largely around there were new types of windows that allowed people to, they call them like sort of what they call them now in some ways like the heat mirror, right? I mean, it lets light in, but it doesn't let heat back out. And I think there's a couple of reasons why solar homes could do really well now. I mean, one is we have better materials for building these types of homes. The second is that we have computers that can model the way that homes use energy, which is good for everybody. I mean, I think it helps reduce the operating cost of a home. And I think one thing that would really help solar homes and just more efficient homes take root is if consumers of homes actually had information about the operating costs of those homes. Because I think, you get a car, it has miles per gallon on it, right? I mean, you don't get the same kind of information about the energy efficiency of a house. And I think if we want the market to work the best that it can, then we need to provide that kind of information. And
I think that's kind of naive to believe that the market is going to be responsive to that. When people buy hear me out. When people buy a home, they're buying 4 rooms, a kitchen, and X number of bathrooms. They want a pool or a tennis court or what have you. People are buying a home based upon the lifestyle that home is going to provide. And very few people, and I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't be concerned, but very few people are integrating a concern of what the energy efficiency of their home is beyond, does this house cost more to operate than I can afford to spend?
Hey, listen, guys.
Right. But if they don't know the answer to that question, they can't they can't act on that, right? I mean, I think I don't know why you'd actually have issue with trying to make the market operate more efficiently.
Thank you, guys. Go out and get the book.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show,